everyone, my name is Andrea. If you don't know me, you should subscribe, but today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up and my 2022 reading stats. This is my first video of 2023 and I just want to say that I'm so proud of myself because I did a wrap-up for every single month in 2022. So this is my final one to complete that. At the end of this video, I'll go into some of my reading stats, which is like how many books I read, how many pages I read, what was the longest book, stuff like that. All of the Goodreads statistics that it just gives you on the app. But for now, let's just jump into all the books I read in December. So the first book I read was called So This Is Love by Tracy Andreen. This was an ARC I got on NetGalley. Thank you, NetGalley. Thank you, Penguin Young Readers, for sending me that ARC. But I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars, and it is a sequel to another book where we are following these two characters named Finley and Arthur, where they go to a boarding school type of thing, Barrington Academy. They have two different like lifestyles and reasons why they're there and resources for how they get to go to the schools and things like that. I didn't read the first one because I didn't know there was a first book, so that was on me, and I don't take anything away from it because of that. I still think I got the gist of everything. I probably would have liked the couple a bit more, but in this book, So This Is Love, they are once again finding themselves back at school, but they have reasons why they can't be together, even though in the last book they were getting to where they could be in a relationship, and now there's like blaring red flags from both ends as to why their relationship isn't working. Something I liked about this book is that it was really fast-paced throughout the whole thing, and I felt like something was happening every chapter. But then on the other side of that, when it got to the end, I feel like there wasn't a big climax, and I know romances don't usually have, you know, like a big ending scene, but still it was kind of lackluster at the end, and I feel like it just wrapped up too quickly, and I kind of hate that. December was a reread month for me. I think I just wanted to read a couple things that I love that I've been wanting to reread, and since I got through my Goodreads goal, I just felt like I had earned the right to reread whatever I wanted. So that's what I did with this next one, which was You've Reached Sam by Dustin Towell. I love this book so much, and I never got to reread it physically, so I actually reread it physically and on audio. So I read it mostly on audio again, and I still loved it again. I still cried like as if I read it for the first time, and I found myself forgetting little details, heartbreaking details throughout this book. And if you don't know what this one is about, it's about Sam and Julie, who have a relationship in high school, and a tragic accident happens to Sam and he dies. Julie is really going through the grief and all the stages of grief and despair after losing someone she loved and had planned a future with. So one day she decides to call up Sam, call up his phone even though he's dead, and then he answers the phone. And that's the premise of You've Reached Sam, figuring out how he's answering, why, what is this time they have together, and how long does it last. Yeah, very sad, but I love Sam and Julie's connection, and I just love this book, so it's a 5-star for me. Thank you once again to Penguin Teen, because I got another ARC, which was my next read. It was called The Davenports by Crystal Marquise, and there's going to be another book. I'm so excited that this is a series, or at least I think there will be another book. But I ended up giving this book 4 stars, and the more I think about it, I really loved it. It is kind of like Bridgerton-esque, but for a more teen young adult audience, and it's centered around a wealthy black family in 1910 in Chicago. We're following 4 different point of views of 4 different girls who are either in the family or close to the family. So we follow Olivia and Helen, who are in the family that the book is about, Olivia and Helen Davenport, and then we also follow another character who is named Amy Rose, who is their childhood friend and now works in their household, and then we have Ruby, who is Olivia's best friend. All of them are entangled in different romance matches and different endeavors, and they all have their own sort of things that they want out of life, and I really feel like from the beginning of the book to the end, they find that what they always wanted isn't exactly what is right for them and for like their futures. And then it's also them like embracing that they can have a different future than what their parents want them to have or what society says they have to have. So I think that aspect of the book was just very comforting and nice to see that coming of age story. Another kind of side plot in this book that I still feel like is pretty important is they all have their own kind of like romance plots, then they all have their own what they want out of life. And well, for Olivia, even though it's in 4 point of views, I feel like she is kind of the backbone of the story. But for Olivia, she had another subplot that was her meeting somebody who is in a activist group for Black freedom. Olivia has grown up very sheltered in a wealthy household and does go volunteer and help other people, but during this time she hasn't really been exposed to all of the truths that are going on around her. So through this avenue of this activist group and this other guy and this friend that she meets, she discovers that maybe she has a chance to speak up, to do more for Black freedom, and just really be more of a help. And that's something she goes back and forth with and struggles with. So that's just a plot in there that I liked. The only couple downfalls that I had were that I feel like to do that it needed to be more fleshed out, and maybe in the next books it will be, which because I think there will be another book, like I said. But I wish we had more time for her to dive in and really focus on it and really kind of like hear or read about her inner thoughts and inner monologue on that. Because the story is split up in 4 point of views, there is not a chance to really get to know each girl. Also, whenever something important happened, like there's a kiss scene or something, or like a big reveal, there, like I said, there's not enough time for the character to reflect on it. So then we just jump to another character, and then the story has to progress and move forward, so we don't actually get to ever go back and know what they were thinking in that moment, which I feel like is a special part of reading, getting to know how they react to these big situations. So overall, it didn't really diminish how much I liked the book. It was just something I personally would have liked to see. I have an entire Goodreads review on it, which I'm really proud of, so if you want to check that out, my Goodreads is linked below. Overall, the Davenports is really great. I believe it comes out in December or January. I will put it on the screen when it comes out. There is like a glare from the sun. I'm sorry, I can't get out of it. But then I read Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, a classic. I think this is the only classic I read this year. Dorian Gray is pretty famous or infamous in the literature world, but I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't that impressed, and I think it's because Dorian Gray as a character is so unlikable and just despicable of a human being, and he has like almost no conscience, and I feel like that's kind of the purpose of the book, so you can't hate on it. Like, if Oscar Wilde set out to make us hate the main character, he did a good job, and that's exactly how I feel. I buddy read this with Mel. I will link her channel down below, but we both had a lot of similar feelings, and getting through the book was a bit tough at certain times because just it kind of drags on and you're just like, okay, but when it's exciting, it's pretty exciting. Picture of Dorian Gray, in short, is about a painting that gets done of Dorian Gray, and when he realizes that he doesn't want to grow old and get ugly and lose his youth, somehow the picture, the portrait, takes on all of his sins, all of the ugliness of him, and the portrait ages, but Dorian Gray himself does not. And I feel like it's just a reflection of the ugliness of human beings and how Dorian Gray does bad things, and it's reflected directly on the portrait, and he has to look at it and he's horrified at his own portrait. And I think that is very interesting, and I like how Oscar Wilde explored that. But overall, still a 3-star book. Next, I read The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I started this a while back, but I finally finished it in December once I really sat down and got to all of the essays. But this is a collection of essays by John Green centered around humanity and the Anthropocene, which is just the geological age of humans right now and what we are doing affecting the earth, affecting each other, stuff like that. I thought it was really good. 5 stars, like I said. It's just a book that is almost an autobiography of John Green's life, but at the same time, it's just on certain topics that he has chosen to write little essays on. And I think it's a very special book. Like, it's not something I've ever read, and I don't think I would read something like it again. It gave me a lot of knowledge on topics that I didn't know about, just random facts and random things, and I loved it for that. So 5 stars. My final 2 reads were rereads of the continuation of a series reread I was doing for Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. So I read Crown of Midnight and got through Heir of Fire, and I wanted to get through another book in December, but when I look at how big Heir of Fire is, I'm okay with that because this is a freaking giant book. So I feel like I did okay. Like, this is like 2 books in one. So obviously I love these. I love Throne of Glass series, and if I reread it, it's a 5-star automatically. So I really enjoyed these books. Also enjoyed getting to see Rowan in Heir of Fire again because I haven't reread this in so long. Seeing him be mean to Aelin was just great. Finally, I'll go through some of my stats from 2022. So I read 107 books total in 2022. That's definitely the most books I've ever read in a year. Very proud of that. Wanted to hit 110, but it just didn't happen. It wasn't gonna work. And I read 44,723 pages, so that's great. The shortest book I read was 30 pages. It was Better Than the Prom by Lynn Painter. That was like a short story, but it was on Goodreads, so I added it, but it wasn't really like an entire book. And the longest book I read was 893 pages, Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare, when I reread TDA. Or my average book length I read in 2022 is 417 pages. That's a lot, so I feel like I definitely read a lot of huge books to balance out the shorter ones, but I read a lot of fantasy, so that makes sense. The most shelved book that I have read was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and the least shelved book was So This Is Love, the one I just read. My average rating for 2022 was 4.1. That's pretty good, so that means I'm picking up books that I genuinely think I will like, and then I do like them. The highest rated on Goodreads was A Court of Mist and Fury. My first review of the year was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and I read that book 2 or 3 times this year because I really liked it. And my final review I posted on Goodreads was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. 2022 was a good reading year for me, I think. I had a lot of fun with a lot of my reads. Hopefully next year I get more off my TBR, but overall very happy with that. So that's the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!